Okay, this is called Icecap. That's all we have for a title, and it's by the Department of Defense, which is really interesting. I am so curious about this. I only know what the thumbnail is, and that's it. But it comes from 1965, Department of Defense Icecap. So let's just get started. All right, the United States Army presents FB-286. Very, very cryptic. This feels like another thing that it's gonna get me on the list. I always worry about that. I don't know, this feels classified almost. Oh wow, what is this? Icecap I. Okay, here we go.
The top of the world, the Greenland ice cap. For countless ages...
Oh, wow, this is Greenland? This is aerial footage of Greenland from what year is it? What did I say? 1953. Is it black and white, or is it just white because it's ice? I don't know. I think it's black and white.
A frozen expanse, feared by man, shunned by animals. A white, cold, empty place. But today, more than ever before, there's been reason to invade this whiteness.
That is so funny that they just said that. Today, more than ever before, in 1953, there's reason to invade this whiteness. Wow. This is going to be a lot more topical than I thought it was going to be 5 seconds ago.
To mark and explore it for an urgent military purpose.
So this is a U.S. military exploration of Greenland for the purpose of securing Greenland, pretty much. Oh man, this is wild. Is this like a hunt for secret Nazis or something?
Of transportation across the ice cap, by which troops and heavy equipment could travel to potential bases.
Dang, this is amazing. They traveled across the ice cap. I'm excited for this. Already, this seems like it's going to be a wild ride. There's a part 2 also. I don't know if I should watch that in the same go or if we should watch that later.
Protecting the northern approach to the Western Hemisphere. In 1952, the Army Transportation Corps organized and sent an expedition across the gigantic ice cap that
Army Transportation Corps sent an expedition across the Greenland ice cap.
Covers most of Greenland. This is the story.
I hope they show us a map, because I wonder how they went, what was even the purpose? I wonder if they went from Thule or whatever.
This is the story of their mission.
This is just fascinating. Oh, there is a map. I love when I do that, when I just ask and do receive.
A principal feature of Greenland is its ice cap.
This is so funny, though, that they're using, the Mercator projection of Greenland, even though it's only focused on Greenland. This is the map that makes, you can just tell by the proportions of the island that this is a Mercator, or something similar to that. The top half of the island, it looks way bigger than the bottom half because of the way they're showing it here. And I know that because I've made a video about Greenland and its scale. I am familiar enough with the scale of Greenland through what I do to pick up on the fact that this is a Mercator Greenland, even though we're not even looking at a world
Over
map.
800,000 square miles of snow-covered ice. Ice that rises to 10,000 feet above sea level. In the narrow coastal belt of northern Greenland, there are possibilities for future military bases of important strategic value.
I love that. I love that they're already at this time thinking about the strategic military value of the northernmost parts of Greenland. That is so bizarre. This has to come out soon. We have to rush this out so that, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just, this is so cool. I don't know. I feel like people are going to use this to justify stuff, but it is so interesting that we were having all these thoughts back then. That's wild.
But such bases can only be built and maintained with heavy equipment, which must be brought across the ice by a surface route.
This is what I was wondering. I think this is where the U.S. military base in Greenland is. Thule, or it changed its name, but I don't know how to pronounce it without looking at it at least. But they're crossing, wow, the northern part of Greenland too. That's probably why they use this map, to make it look longer.
From Thule.
Thule, yeah, that's what it is. But that's not what it's named now. It's changed. But they are. I'm glad that I called that before they showed it too. Dude, the footage on this isn't the greatest though. I'm worried that anyone watching is gonna be kind of let down by what we're seeing. I hope it's not all this dim, but it is 1950s footage of Greenland, so.
Here a base had already been established under an arrangement with the Danish government. Sea and air terminal facilities, as well as housing, had been set up in record time. And now on the...
See, it's wild because I feel like I'm watching something from like right now, or like from like a year in the future. Everything that's being said could be repeated in today's world and make the same amount of sense.
Spring of 1952, a group of Transportation Corps personnel had arrived at Thule with the purpose of making a preliminary field reconnaissance of the ice cap with heavy commercial sled equipment. Although this was good equipment, it had not been specifically designed for the difficult ascent to the ice cap. Formerly used for hauling in and around Thule, the sleds needed to be repaired and converted.
So that's how they did it. They crossed it on sled. And I guess they probably had trucks too, right? They showed those earlier. I guess we'll see, but I guess that's just something that you don't know about living on the ice of Greenland, is that most of the stuff needs to take sleds.
All the work was carried out under field conditions by sled detachment personnel.
Sled Detachment Personnel, SDP.
Expeditions had left Thule before to go further north, led by such explorers as Peary, Rasmussen, and Freuchen. Unlike their famous predecessors, who traveled extremely light, this group was ordered to travel heavy and to find a route that could support the weight.
So there are parts of the ice that can't take the weight. It's pretty much ice road truckers, isn't it? Like, you just have to drive over this ice hoping that it like holds, which I think it would all hold. Like, I think the ice is so, or at least my thought is that the ice on Greenland is so thick that like you could drive anything over it. I wouldn't even think that it would be weak enough. I mean, maybe it might like crumble or something though. That's interesting. I guess there's different like hardnesses of ice on the surface maybe that like you have to consider. There's probably like a whole unexplored world of like ice geography, the same way there is for like deserts like Erg and Reg and stuff. Like there might be like crunchy soft ice that you can't like drive on or else you fall into it, and there's probably like super solid brick ice that you can drive over. This is already so fascinating.
One heavy load would be the Wanigan, a sort of bunkhouse on sled runners.
See, maybe that's why they're worried about the weight. It's because they're dragging like houses with them.
In which the men would eat and sleep. It was built solid for a lengthy stay on the ice, for protection against the fierceness of Arctic blizzards.
Dude, you have to give these guys some respect for doing this, though. This is nuts. Just seeing that guy's cold breath lingering for like minutes. My cold breath disappears after like a second or two, but that was freezing cold air that guy was in right there.
Much aerial reconnaissance of the ice cap had been accomplished, but from the air the heavy snow cover prevented an accurate picture of terrain difficulties. Aerial photography was used to bring the few existing maps of the area up to date. And finally...
So that's wild too. They're using aerial photography to double check their maps. This feels like one of the last frontiers, right? Like they still didn't quite know what the layout of the land was up here yet. I guess that's why they were exploring. It is so wild to think that we have footage of all this exploration taking place. Like very little exploration do we actually have footage of, which is funny because that's now what I think of as like proof that you were there of footage, you know, like unless like you could write about going anywhere, but you actually have to get footage of the Greenland ice sheet to prove that you were there.
A route was laid out across the ice cap. Sleds were lined up and prepared for loading. The plan was to carry large amounts of fuel.
And this is also nuts too, like, and a lot of the stuff that I watch, these are like reenactments or something, but this is like the actual actions taking place. These aren't actors, these are the explorers, you know, that's what makes this so interesting to me. It's so much more gripping when you like are actually with the people who this story's about, I guess.
And a call for relatively few airdrops for resupply. The problem of keeping food under refrigeration would be no problem. One of the few interests en route would be food. Mealtime is an important break in the routine of Arctic travel. The day arrived for departure. The first leg of the journey was from Thule to the slope leading to the ice cap.
This is wild footage still. Like, this is what Thule looked like back, what is year? Yeah, 1953. Like, this is early Thule. And like, not that anyone watching knows what Thule looks like now. You know, it's, again, it has a different name, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But like, it's just wild to see this military base in this like not this pre-established form. I think it was pretty established even at this time, but like this like early, it's like an early colony almost, you know, like it feels that way at least, especially with the rhetoric that's going on now. This feels like the beginning of something, you know.
There were many problems ahead. It was not at all certain that a route could be found which would support equipment far heavier.
Like, it feels like I'm watching the beginning of what's just coming to fruition now. It's just, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it's bizarre to see this early stage of, you know, American presence in Greenland.
Than the dog sleds that had explored the ice cap in years past. Because it might be necessary to send out subsequent expeditions with lighter equipment, this group was on its way in early spring, so that a maximum amount of time would be available before September, when weather would make it difficult for further ice cap exploration.
So that really is what they did. They just had these, like, I don't want to call them tanks, but they're like tractor tanks. I don't know. They look like the cross between a tractor and a tank because they have the treads instead of like wheels, which makes sense in the ice, but it looks like it's meant for pulling stuff specifically. So I guess like a tow tank or something. I don't know, but that's what they're doing. They drag everything on sleds, which again, makes a lot of sense. That's so interesting to think of, like, the future of Greenland. Like, if you could have, like, ice trains crossing the ice sheet on sled. I don't know. Like, just like a wire pulling. I just think that's interesting.
From the beginning, the going was tough. The snow on these slopes was deep and loose. Tractors winched the sleds slowly forward.
See, that is interesting. I think it's all ice on the ice sheets, but I guess there is a lot of just snow covered on top, too. And I understand how easy it would be to get trapped in snow with, like, big, heavy vehicles like this. I thought it would be, like, rock-solid ice that they were driving over the whole time.
After the sled was free, it would be unhooked and coupled to continue in the train. But time and again, the party would be halted by a sled that had bogged down. Double heading was used to pull the sleds past the moraine. The group was on its way to the marginal zone, where more serious problems were expected.
More serious problems in the marginal zone? So a picture they're going in, so I feel like it should be getting more solid the deeper they go. I don't know.
Gradually, the party gained altitude. Through thinning fog, it rose into the bright and revealing light of the marginal zone. But although the visibility...
This is so eerie just watching this. It's amazing to think that during this operation there was somebody getting out of these vehicles and putting up a camera. Because like an old film camera too. Like imagine the blowing wind, it's freezing cold, and somebody's setting up their camera to get these shots. And it's so sad because they don't even look that great now. But like it was definitely still worth it just to have it all on footage. Just to get this recorded, really.
...became excellent. There was much that could not be seen here.
It feels like I'm watching like Star Wars or something, looking at these landscapes too. Like it just seeing the vast scale of like the empty ice just feels like Hoth.
Even from the air, crevasses, deep cracks in the ice, were to present the most formidable obstacle of the trip. A vehicle could easily fall into a crevasse with its driver, so a remote control technique was used. Working with lanyards attached to his track brakes, the driver could walk safely behind his tractor.
They are calling them tractors. That's so funny. So they are just like ice tractors, and they're remote operated by like string. That is also an insane danger that I guess I wasn't taking into consideration. It's just like the crevasses like inside the glaciers themselves. Like I just thought they'd be like rock solid.
Skiers would feel ahead, probing, making sure of a firm route. Much assistance was given by Transportation Corps helicopters called up from the base. They could scout large...
Damn, is this like a regular helicopter from back then? This is like I don't know, it looks like bare bones, but also like, I don't know, like it's an all glass dome. That looks like a lot of fun.
Large areas for signs of crevasses. Once this marginal area was crossed, they would be the relative safety.
Dang, see, the cameraman even got in the helicopter. That's what's crazy. I'm saying, like, we got all these amazing shots. We have aerial footage of of this, caravan through Greenland.
Of the central ice cap. But much time was spent here, advancing and backtracking, pulling vehicles out of small
Oh, it looks, just by the tire marks, it looks like they got stuck a lot.
crevasses, avoiding the large ones visible from the air. Some crevasses were 50 feet across and hundreds of feet down of undetermined depth.
Yeah, that's wild. That is like very dangerous to cross. I wonder if that's only a specific part of the ice sheet or if it's, if there are crevasses all the way through. Because I guess it makes sense. It's just like it's a split in the ice. I don't know.
The area ahead was scouted most carefully. No vehicles were lost, but unfortunately some of the smaller crevasses were discovered by the sleds themselves. Perhaps there was too much weight here for crossing the marginal area. A decision was made to go no further, but to return with knowledge and experience that would help make possible an ice cap crossing with equipment designed more particularly for the purpose.
Wow, that is interesting. They decided to turn back because they couldn't cross these crevasses. It's funny to think that, like, they were unprepared. In the beginning, it said that they were using mostly like commercial equipment. It's so funny that the military would just like go out and buy a sled and be like, oh man, this is like not working. Funny that we had to go out and do it once before we realized we had to design stuff ourselves.
This initial reconnaissance party had ventured 17 difficult miles.
How did the native Greenland people cross this? Do the native Greenlanders cross the ice sheet, or do they just like go around it on boat? That seems like the obvious choice, but I have to imagine they have crossed it at least a few times. I don't know. Or like I have to imagine they do cross it sometimes. Maybe not. I mean, it is a huge ice sheet. It seems almost impossible.
Snow, hummocks, and crevasses. It returned to base having experienced the most difficult part of an ice cap crossing.
Dang, imagine the feeling of defeat going back home after this though. We're only 8 minutes in, there's 20 minutes left, so we must watch their second attempt at least.
There was still time in the summer of 1952 to prepare for a second venture onto the ice cap and perhaps...
They're doing this during the summer. Do you think that affects it? Obviously it makes it warmer and more tolerable, but it also probably means the ice is weaker? I don't know. Maybe that's what they're testing out. I don't know. I feel like it's probably easier to cross. I guess I don't know how cold it gets on the ice sheet during the winter, or during the summer. Is the ice even melting?
Cross it. In July, the Chule detachment was reinforced with additional experienced personnel. They readied equipment that had been selected with knowledge gained from the spring reconnaissance.
It's crazy that these are all just American guys who are just chilling in Greenland. This guy might be from Ohio for all we know, and he's just on the northernmost air base in the world.
Amphibious snow tractors were modified with cab extensions for housing radio and seismic equipment and to increase living space. To aid in navigation.
That looks so funny too. I love the old era technology with this glass dome coming out of it. I feel like you would never get this made today. This design, I don't know why. There's something so retro about just this glass dome.
An observation, astrodomes were installed.
Astrodome is what he called it.
And made snow tight. Broader runners for low ground pressure would help keep the sleds from bogging down. Pipe stanchions were erected to support a canvas roof.
This is really cool. This could be a movie of its own. Them going out the first time, failing. You could definitely dramatize that. And then them coming back and building their own custom rig to cross the ice. This is a pretty cool story.
Roof and sides. Well,
I feel like I've also never heard of this happening before. I don't know if that's because this was Department of Defense or something, but again, who was watching this? Is this an internal film for the Department of Defense. That's what I just have not figured out about these Department of Defense programs yet, is who the intended audience was of this. Was it just like military men in like a military room, or like a, you know, a war planning room watching this together? Like, who watched this? Where was this even displayed, you know?
1-ton sleds were in sharp contrast.
I just feel like I never heard about this, and it feels like no one else has either. I could be wrong though. Maybe I'm just out of the know.
To the heavy wooden wanigans taken on the spring trip. The route would be staked with 12-foot trail markers painted international orange.
International orange? I wonder what that means.
Sleds were loaded on trucks for the trip, over now snowless roads to the base of the ice cap. The weasels, too, were to be carried by truck to save them from unnecessary wear and tear over 8 miles of rough road to the ice cap, to keep them in the best possible condition until the real beginning of the journey.
I feel like this music is trying to be epic. I feel like it might have been back in the day, but I feel like we need even more epic music for this. Again, this is so wild what they're doing. Like, no one, I guess, you know, the Inuit native people have probably crossed the ice sheet a bajillion times before, but like to do it with like this equipment, it just seems like going out into the unknown, really, is what it feels like.
The ice cap again. Could the road that led to it continue over it? Every possible use had been made of knowledge gained in the past. For example, the weasels were more maneuverable than the tractors used by the spring group, and their longer hulls would help bridge crevasses. But next day, a start was made, under unexpectedly good conditions. It was 3 a.m. and cold, clear weather. The temperature had dropped, and a crust had formed on the slushy snow, helping the group to make fast progress.
So he said that the snow was slushy, and then it froze. So it probably is easier to cross during the winter. But I bet it's probably less bearable to cross and less worth it. I don't know.
Like so many.
I don't know the logistics of operating on Greenland,
Like
to be
so
honest.
many army trips, at the beginning, this one looked easy. In the hummocky area, the weasels took the bumps without effort, and the sleds followed along securely. Temporarily, there were no problems.
The custom vehicle aspect is also so fun. Like, I can just imagine it must have been so so enjoyable, so like just adventurous, I guess. It just feels like anything can happen when you're out on the road in the middle of Greenland on your custom built vehicles. Like, that makes this like all the more like serious and interesting.
And then the pace was slower. Far off rocky peaks, nunataks, piercing the surface of the...
That's funny how even back then, the term nunatak, that was a term I learned recently for a video, and I didn't think that anyone actually used that term, nunatak. It's like the part of a mountain that when it's under a glacier, the peak of it that is still rock on top, like these little dark spots in the distance, the nunataks. That's just, I'm impressed by their use of that word, actually. And the fact that they got it pronounced right, too.
Cap were a clue to crevasses ahead. Proceed cautiously. A helicopter was called to help scout the area.
Dude, this helicopter looks like a spy helicopter or something. This is like this glass dome.
The pilot delivered some last-minute items, received his instructions, and flew ahead. The Snow Scout, an air-propelled reconnaissance vehicle,
Dang, I didn't even think about that. They have like a freaking hovercraft too. That's awesome.
was especially valuable when visibility from the air was poor.
See, because that's so smart, because I feel like this is one of the few places where something like that actually makes sense to use. It's crazy that they had that back then, though. I don't know. I guess it is just like a big propeller.
Traveling at speeds up to 35 miles per hour, it had extremely low ground pressure.
Oh, it's not a hovercraft. It's just like a fan-powered boat on ice. That's still pretty cool, to be honest.
And could even jump crevasses when necessary.
That was sick. They did a little jump.
Fog moved in abruptly when the Snow Scout was out. The party waited, somewhat anxiously. By following its own trail, the Snow Scout was able to return
Yeah, also I can imagine it would be so easy to get lost the second there's like snow because it's just all white in all directions, like even your tracks get covered up and it's like how do we go? I guess you can use the sun, but you're close to the North Pole, so that is like barely helpful either.
with information about the area ahead.
Oh, that's why you wouldn't want to go during the winter though, because it would be dark the whole time. So this is the only time. So that's what I'm not even thinking about. So they probably have like 20-hour sunlight days or something. Maybe not, maybe like less than that, but they probably are getting a lot of light and not a lot of dark.
Now, as the weather became worse, it was possible to continue on in the tracks of the snow scout.
I can't believe I'm watching like the actual footage of this happening. That's what is so cool. I keep going back to the photographer, the cameraman who took all these shots. Like they had to get out and place them and have people drive by. I hope it was just one guy. It would be impressive if it was just one guy filming all this. I don't know if I saw the credits at the beginning. I'll look for it at the end if who the photography was.
More nunataks and slower going. Every movement ahead was guided carefully.
Wow, see, even seeing this guy walk through, I thought this ice would be solid enough for a person to walk through. I understand, like, a big vehicle crumbling through the ice, but to see this guy's foot even sink into the snow makes me realize that it kind of is, like, treacherous out there.
In particularly delicate areas, 2 markers were placed to indicate a safe lane between. When a small crevasse was discovered, vehicles could often be led across it at right angles.
Oh yeah, but what if you come up to a crevasse like head on? The fact that you can't see them because they're covered by like just a one layer of snow is also like so nerve-wracking. It must have been terrifying to go on this expedition a little. I would have been this guy with the skis. Like you can't fall down a crevasse. Not like a small one with the skis at least. But without the skis, you could just take a step forward and fall straight into a crevasse. I don't know. I would be worried of walking around without some skis on.
Vehicles did slide in.
Dang, yeah, like that's stuck.
This sled came out easily with no damage. A crevasse that looks...
That is, oh my God, I was going to say I wanted to see if they show us what it actually fell into. So that it was just like a chasm in the ice that the track slipped into. That is wild, because then they must be like everywhere if that's happening,
Small, might be wider farther down, as big as a cathedral. There was no telling.
That's the nuts part about it all. And I guess they probably won't show us that, but like just how deep a crevasse can go and how like wide they can be at the base. This is like the perfect illustration of why I said I wanted skis a second ago, because you can see them overlaying like where the crevasse is. At the beginning I thought this might have been something that I would have enjoyed doing, but like, no, I think I would have been fine going on a different expedition. I don't know if I would have volunteered for Icecap. Operation Icecap.
While this group proceeded up the ice cap toward Camp Alpha, the remainder of the sled detachment at Thule, informed of the difficulties being encountered, decided to cross the Wolstenholme Fjord to find a better route up the ice cap. In this marginal zone, a road had to be constructed.
They explained why they're doing this, sort of like national security, kind of like how it's been explained in today's, climate, but I just wish I knew like the objective, like the actual objective, like where are they trying to go and why, and I feel like they're being coy about it. I feel like they're not explaining what exact threats, Russia or whoever, the USSR, I guess, posed to Greenland that necessitated all this. That's what I want to know. Why is it of national security importance for these, American air bases to exist on Greenland? I'm curious. I wish this would explain it, because I want to hear it from like this perspective, more than anything now. Like everything now is politicized. I feel like this is like the actual pure, like distilled voice of like motivation behind it all, like this will explain to us why they're doing it, but they haven't given us that explanation. And so it makes their plans seem kind of like purposeless, right? Like why go to this fjord instead of through that one to get here, like what are they actually trying to do? I know they're just trying to learn how to get across, but like they haven't even explained why, you know? Like, why can't they just go around the island? I just wish that there was a bit more of an explanation for why any of this was happening, because without that, it just seems like they're trying to get themselves as far into the ice as they possibly can for seemingly no reason. I wish they would admit, or at least say what they're doing this for.
The big job here at Nunatarsuaq Peninsula was to build the road from the beach up to the base of the ice cap. Road building equipment.
Again, this is an insane vehicle that this guy is driving, like a long truck, amphibious truck. Like, this is some heavy duty stuff that we were using.
Was brought ashore under unfavorable conditions. There were extreme tides to contend with. Also, the beach lay very
Yeah, it literally has wheels. That's crazy. They just drove it into the water and onto land.
close to the Moltke Glacier. And from the
What's wild is that, like, I think about people colonizing Greenland now, and it's like, no, we had like the ability to do it all the way back then. Like, that vehicle was already capable of handling the Greenland terrain. We don't even need to learn how to do this. Like, we already have all the equipment.
calving cliffs of this glacier, miniature icebergs, bergy bits, would break off and drift in, interfering at times with unloading operations.
How'd they get that whole, like, crane? I don't know. It looked like they just drove the crane through the water, too.
Equipment had to be carefully handled, since it was exposed to considerable wear and tear from the rocky soil of this area. Morainic deposits from receding glaciers. Sled detachment personnel in an engineering role made the road building project a success.
I love how this is just like your average Joe American guy. Like, he's not even wearing a jacket or anything. He's just in like normal work clothes, building like the first road on this point in Greenland, you know? And I love that we have footage of it too. Like, this is so wild that like we just saw, this is like obviously not akin to like, you know, the Pilgrims arriving on America or anything, but like this is like the arrival of like the American military on Greenland, you know? Like, we just watched them build that road that is probably still maintained somewhat to this day. Maybe not. It feels like we're watching in real time, like the military just establishing a foothold on Greenland.
A rough trail was laid out, and vehicles were able to proceed ashore onto the ice cap. The road leading to a less hazardous and shorter route through the marginal zone to Camp Alpha was of vital importance. The CO was on hand to give...
Dang, these guys don't even have beards, you know? Like, that's how you know they were unprepared. Like, you know they came back with beards. You don't go exploring, like, the deep Arctic without facial hair.
the project his personal attention. Meanwhile, the group ascending the ice cap had reached Camp Alpha and had radioed back for supplies. The group waits for mail, for fresh food. Everyone is on the look.
That's so funny that they were receiving mail during all this. Like, they actually had somebody delivering them mail messages. That's, again, like, the scale of this operation is also hard to comprehend. Like, this was the U.S. military doing something. Like, they weren't half-assing it. Like, they were getting it done, and their soldiers were receiving mail at the same time.
Out for the plane. Guided by the ground party, it flies at low altitude for a free drop.
That was nuts. You know, that's part of the cool thing of seeing this stuff really happen, is like they really just dropped these things out of this low-flying plane. Like, that's that's pretty cool. You don't get to see stuff like that.
Gasoline drums splash safely onto
Dang, those are gasoline drums that they're dropping? I didn't know that. Maybe you should drop them a little carefully.
Another run to drop rations.
Yeah, like they're just dropping gasoline all over the place like that.
This one was too high and too fast. The result was miles of rations strewn across the snow.
So they just dropped all their rations by plane onto the ice, and like all their food and all their supplies are just like scattered about, and they have to pick them up. That is another wild aspect of living on the Greenland ice sheet that I just never would have imagined.
Breakfast, lunch, and supper as far as the eye could see. The packages had not been able to withstand the impact of a high free drop.
Dude, so they weren't even supposed to do that? That was all an accident? I thought that was like on purpose, but it looks like all the boxes broke open and everything.
Dynamite, separated from its parachute, was important for later seismic work.
Dude, and you know they didn't find everything, right? Like, there's totally stuff buried in that ice still.
Little was lost except time. 4 hours of policing the ice cap. Subsequent drops were more successful. At last, supplies were organized. 55-gallon drums of gasoline had not been carried over the crevassed area in order to travel as light as possible. Now the fuel was transferred to 5-gallon cans for easy refueling en route. Full tanks eliminate...
See, but like, if they can just fly planes with gasoline out, then like, why can't they just fly from Thule to the other point that they need to go? You know, like, again, why does this adventure need to happen? You know, that's what I'm struggling to get with, other than like, they need to learn. I guess maybe that's the whole point, is this is just their first attempt at this. Icecap Part 1, I guess.
The danger of moisture condensation within and subsequent freezing of fuel lines and fuel pumps. A cache was dug. Here surplus supplies would be stored to be used by other Arctic parties or perhaps by this group on its return trip. Finally, the cache was marked. Henceforth, Camp Alpha would not simply be a geographical spot on a map, but a true camp with a well-stocked deep freeze.
I wonder if this is still here. They might have returned and got the stuff. I wonder if this like structure that they built is still here or anything. It might be covered already.
And now the party was ready for the 800 miles across Greenland. In many ways, it was going to be like an ocean trip.
Dang, the 800 miles. So they just got started.
Across a sea of frozen water, with some of the pleasures of an ocean trip, like sunning on the top deck.
Yeah, I mean, once you get going, it seems like a pretty easy journey, right? You're just driving, really. Like, you know, obviously you can get stuck in the ice and stuff, but if you don't, then, like, this seems pretty easy. I don't know. I guess that, you know, the trick is not getting stuck in the ice, I guess.
On good days, when this sea of ice was calm, there was nothing to do but stay on course, in the tracks of the vehicle ahead. Sometimes there were waves, snow waves, sastrugi, in which case the sleds would dig in, causing considerable strain on tow bars. These had to be reinforced.
Is that true? Snow waves? Does that mean that there's just little hills, like little ridges that like you have to go over? Or is that something else? Snow, like they can't just drop the concept of a snow wave and not like explain it further.
Helping the party in selecting a route were several young French scientists with previous experience in Greenland. After shooting at
young French scientists with experience in Greenland. Interesting.
The sun to calculate their position, they prepare for a seismic shot to determine the depth of the ice at this point. Wire is played out for approximately half a mile. The seismic shot will be made with an explosion of...
Okay, so what are they doing? They're trying to figure out how deep the ice is by making a sound. So I think they're going to try to listen to the echoes of it. They're going to hear the first time it hits, but then they're also going to hear it go to the rock and bounce back, and they'll listen for it that way. I don't know. It seems interesting, though, that we had already knew how to do this.
Dynamite placed just below the surface of the snow. The technique developed in patrol...
Am I the only one who's thinking, like, what if, like, it all blows up? But, like, obviously it's not, right? Like, it's solid ice. It's not going to just, like, crumble.
Petroleum research involves a shock wave traveling through a medium and its echo being recorded. Seismometers, contact microphones, are attached to the wire at various points to pick up the echo traveling through the thickness of the ice.
Okay, I was right. So that is interesting. But they laid out a wire and then they placed the sensors all along the wire.
The wires connect to a blasting machine and to a seismograph installed in...
Dang, this guy doesn't even have gloves. Maybe he just takes them off because he's dealing with wires.
A cabin extension at the rear of a weasel. Everything is ready. The charge goes off. The data obtained, some of it revealing the potential location of crevasses, will be used in future plans and operations on the ice cap. Altitude was obtained daily by reading the atmospheric pressure on a mercury barometer and comparing it with the pressure at sea level received over the radio from Thule. Layers of snow, like the rings in a cross-section of a tree, tell a story. Each layer has its own temperature and snow density, revealing the weather in years past. Relative humidity, measured with a psychrometer, was included in the daily message to the base.
Is that for real? That's a humidity measurer, that thing that he's swinging around?
One weather condition that the eye could see for itself was the approach of a blizzard.
Again, yeah, I wish we could see these like landscapes in better detail than what we have here, because I bet you can see like crazy far when you're out on the snow. I bet it looks wild, honestly, just because of like the white too, the endless expanse of white, like, and then seeing like a cloud roll in. I wonder how, like, I just wonder what it looks like. Obviously, this is trying to show us, but it's not doing the best job.
It would come suddenly. Surface winds would blow up, and whirling snow would be all around the party. Trying to outrun the storm with visibility decreasing was a strain on the driver. He had to keep close watch on the vehicle ahead. Being lost during an Arctic blizzard is about as dangerous as being lost at sea. When the blizzard proved too much, the convoy would be halted. Vehicles would face into the wind and be so placed that snowdrifts building up on their lee side would not block the path of the vehicle and back when the convoy was ready to move out.
See, they were thinking of everything. These guys were like pros. I would not have thought of that.
The big blow.
This is just another insane aspect of this expedition, though. It's just like dealing with a blizzard on top of an ice sheet. I don't know what the weather, I was expecting the weather to be on top of the ice sheet. I just feel like it's probably like sunny but cold all the time. Or maybe it's cloudy all the time. But like, I guess I didn't expect for like blizzards to blow through, you know? Is it really a blizzard, or is it just like a windstorm that picks up a lot of like ice off the ground? That's what I bet it is. I bet it doesn't actually receive all that much rain or precipitation. I could be wrong, obviously, but I bet this is more like a windstorm that just pushes like snow dust everywhere. Maybe not, but I that's what I can imagine happening more.
Nothing much to do except play a game of cards. Maybe
These cards, I bet, are bicycle cards. I guarantee you that's the maker of these
a
cards.
few hundred games. Outside, visibility 0, a whiteout. Inside, visibility 0, a blackout.
That's funny, they're just all sleeping through this. You know, I guess there's nothing else to do.
Eventually, and this could mean a few hours or a few days, there are signs that the blizzard is giving up.
See, that's insane too. Like, this windstorm could last several days. Like, oh my gosh, that's so... I can't imagine living in a world like that.
The sun begins to come through, revealing weasels with a new coat of caked snow. A blizzard wastes time, and as soon as it appears to be letting up, the convoy is anxious to get started. First, there are some jobs to do, like digging away some of the drift snow.
Dang, that snow looked like solid. That looked like some snowball snow, if you know what I mean. Like, sometimes snow is soft, but that did not look like soft snow. Again, yeah, this looks like ice.
After a blizzard, the fresh snow glistens like a million diamonds, just like home, and clearing a path to the garage. The convoy starts again, and with it the routine of Icecap travel. You go ahead at about 6 to 7 miles an hour, staying in the tracks of the vehicle in front to relieve the strain on your vehicle.
Thanks. So 6 to 7 miles an hour, and they're trying to cross like 800 miles of ice. So like over 100 hours, that's for sure. Probably like 120, 150 hours just to cross this, which is like, assuming you're driving straight, which is like a week or two just to cross this thing.
The whiteness slips by, and there's more whiteness. And it's daylight all day. You've got the sun in the morning and the sun at night.
I said that, didn't I? I forgot about that. But yeah, they're probably not even getting darkness. That's funny.
The group comes to a halt for an airdrop. Supplies for the final
That must be so weird being in this totally white space with light all the time. It like just a white snowy void.
leg of the trip.
Like it must be so disorienting, honestly, to just be out there for long periods of time. Like no sleep, no landmarks, nothing. That I bet you could go crazy just living out here.
Bring her down. Keep her level. Drop now. The plane must be brought in low, but watch to see that barrels don't bounce back into the tail surfaces. After each run, the drop zone was shifted slightly so that supplies would not fall on top of those already dropped. The first interest...
That's probably the most insane footage, is this, them just dropping these things from the plane. That's still like... just wild to see them pulling off this huge operation out in the middle of the ice. Like, even just navigating over the ice in a plane seems really difficult. Like, there's no landmarks for you to gauge with down there either. Like, you just have to do it purely based on, like, the radio signals, which I guess is what these guys' jobs were, but it seems like a very difficult process.
Was the mail, which was a one-way affair, since letters were received but not picked up. Contact with family and friends was maintained by an arrangement with the base, which sent out letters.
Wow. See, again, yeah, that's so amazing that they were just getting like their family's mail.
Informing the people at home on the health and well-being.
That's just also so funny that there were like families in America that were writing letters to their dads who were just in Greenland doing this crazy mission. And like, I don't know, like they probably, that's the craziest part, is coming back home after this expedition, like going back to just like normal suburban American life after being out on the Greenland ice sheet for like a month. It's just so wild.
Of expedition members.
Like you forget that these are all just regular people doing incredible things.
At 7,500 feet altitude, the air is thin, and lifting the 55-gallon drums took more hands than usual. And at such altitudes, because of the greater loss of energy, as well as the long hours and the cold, supplemental rations were provided. Frankfurters were counted out carefully.
That's also really funny that he called these Frankfurters and not just hot dogs.
And steaks were cut with hairline accuracy. Hot, steaming chow on the empty ice cap made up for a lot of other things that weren't around. There was a general cleanup. The men got ready for a big date with their destination.
That's so funny that they're shaving too, because I made that mention of facial hair earlier. I guess they're in the military, so they're not allowed to have facial hair. It just seems like it would be helpful in this environment to have some facial hair. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased, but it seems so cold to have an exposed face.
The ice cap seemed less hostile now, almost friendly, at least better known, better understood. The cap began to slope downward. Not much of a slope, but it quickened the pace.
That's also wild that it's like so flat, but like even if you're on the smallest incline, it affects like the pace at which you go. It like, you forget that like it is an undulating surface. It might not feel like it, but like the ice sheet is not perfectly flat anywhere.
Now the smell of land was in the air. The party stopped. There was something ahead. Water. A lake.
Oh man, that's actually really cool to have found like, yeah, like a frozen lake in the glacier. That's cool.
The lake proved
No way, really? It's like melted? I thought it was gonna be like just frozen, but it's an actual like melted lake in the middle of the glacier.
to be shallow, but it was a curious phenomenon, a lake on the ice.
Yeah, you can say that again. How does that happen?
Being amphibious, the weasels were very much at home here.
This must have been such a surprise to come across at the time. Like, what is this doing here? I wonder if any of them like even knew this could happen or not. I'd also be like really sketched out about driving over it. I think I would like go around. Honestly, I would not drive straight through the melted water. I'd go to the parts that are still frozen. I don't know why. I just feel like you could just fall straight through. Like, this feels mad risky what they're doing right here.
The lake was a break in the monotony, a sort of a tourist attraction. But from now on, there'd be plenty of things to be seen, or rather to be on the lookout for. The group was in the marginal zone again.
Oh, so are they at the end of their journey now?
Those strange dark clouds ahead, they were a reflection of land. But land wouldn't be reached before dozens of melt streams had been crossed. 6 to 7 miles an hour became 2 to 3 miles an hour.
Wow, that's incredible too. Just like the streams of water coming off the glaciers. That's cool.
Bumping downward over hummocks was hard on the equipment. The sleds were unhooked and left behind. The weasels were taken by the hand and led over larger hummocks and more frequent melt streams. Caring for the vehicles was instinctive here. They were the means of getting home. To avoid crossing melt streams, paths would be selected in between. But sooner or later, one would have to be crossed.
Yeah, I wonder if they were prepared for this or if this was like a totally unexpected terrain style that they would have to be crossing. Like, I would not be thinking about crossing streams while walking over the glaciers like this. That's just not what I had in mind. I bet they had some idea of what they were getting into, though.
The weasels were being subjected to severe strain. They couldn't undergo too much of this. Should they be taken any further?
Whoa, it looks like that one almost got taken too far.
The answer was decided by the view ahead. Bright, gleaming cliffs of ice and land. The party went forward on foot, eagerly, each man a Perry, an Amundsen, an explorer of the white unknown.
Is that the water or is that land? I can't tell because the footage isn't that great. I can't tell if that's like rocky surface that's dark or if that's just like, it looks like water to me.
The last white slope. Then a feast for the eyes, brown land.
Oh, okay, it is land.
Musk oxen had their first look at man.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I was not expecting there to be musk oxen. So they're in like the dead north? Are you kidding me? Is that real? Are there musk oxen that far north in the world? What do they eat? That blows my mind right there.
Found the sight most disturbing. The edge of the ice cap, steep cliffs 200 feet high, gave some indication of what had been crossed, except that in the center of the cap, the ice was many times as high. Where the cliffs had collapsed might be a good place for a road someday.
What a pointed statement. Where the cliffs had collapsed, it might be a good place for a road someday. Like, you can clearly tell what these guys were thinking when they were exploring these lands.
400 miles from the North Pole, amid rocks and a few miniature flowers, there was a pause for chow. Overcoming panic, the musk ox looks at man again, his last look for a good long time. For now the destination was home. Back up the rocky slope onto the immensity of the ice cap, over a known route that could be followed, not only by these men, but by others. A route and a method had been found over which cargo could be hauled. Not simply light, but mass over the ice cap transport was feasible.
Yeah, I guess that is, if this was the very first journey of this kind, I guess you would have learned a lot from it. I guess you would have been like, yeah, we totally can do this now. Like, and they know how, they know what sort of things to build. That's just, you rarely get to see these sorts of adventures taking place before you. So it's really, this is a really cool, special glimpse into the world of exploration, man.
The trail was there, 800 miles of it. The mission had been accomplished.
Okay, wow, that was Icecap. So I guess we learned a lot about this. I guess, you know, the people who learned the most from this was probably the U.S. military, but we learned a lot too, I think. We learned about how the U.S. military learned about Greenland, and we learned about the presence of the U.S. in Greenland. This was so much more than I expected it to be, and I'm just fascinated that we've been doing this sort of stuff for so long here. I feel like obligated to speak more about it because of what's happening in the news, but this really is like, I don't know, an uncharted frontier, especially back then, right? 53, right? Yeah, 1953. This was a totally uncharted place. I feel like worst case scenario, people like use this as a way to claim Greenland as rightfully American somehow, or like the northern half or something, you know? Like this seems like the laying the groundwork for a greater claim to Greenland, which obviously we can see coming to fruition now. But this was amazing. If what's happening in the news now is so interesting, like this is the beginning of that story. And that's what makes this so interesting. I'm so happy that we got to watch this. I don't have a lot of questions though. I think all we're going to do is cut to black.